Hey guys, I met this beautiful client today and she is going to be a challenge to map. So I wanted to go ahead and record it for you guys and show you how I'm going to handle it. So as you see here, there's a thin scar on both brows as well as this fatty deposit. So what happened is she actually had a cancer spot in one of her brows and she had some kind of sun damage spots on both sides. So she opted to cut out both brows preventatively to make sure she didn't have issues. But this little, it's just a little bit of an extra fatty deposit underneath the skin. She said it's non-cancerous, they have it checked out. But if you look carefully, there is a thin line of a scar on both brows. So anyways, so the skin is very tight and fragile and a little bit scarred along her brow bone. But in addition to that, this nice rounded bump, it's actually going to be a difficult microblade, but also a difficult map. The hair that is left in the center is also pretty low compared to her brow bone, so we're going to build above that a little bit. And then we're going to shade her primarily just because the skin is compromised and I don't want to damage it more than I need to. And I'm worried about bruising with her microblading. Okay, so first thing I'm doing, she said that she wanted to go basically build in from how much the one brow that comes further in and match it to the other side. So from the divots in her nose, those two marks look pretty good, but I want to look because I noticed that the tip of her nose is kind of off-centered. Do you see that? So there's actually kind of a gap here compared to here, but I do want them pretty balanced with her eyes. So from the corner of her eye here, okay, if you look at that, that's maybe 2 millimeters, but from the corner of eye here, it's actually more like 3, maybe 3.5. So I'm going to do a second line right here at the corner of this eye. And I'll show her both of those and explain to her that basically if we're trying to balance from the center of her nose, I feel like this further in line looks balanced. She was telling me when she draws them in, she usually fills in, for all intents and purposes, the left brow on the screen more towards the center. But I actually think where that hair is naturally starting is where we should do the brow. But again, I'll make those marks, show them to her, and see what she thinks. So I'm going to flip this up so that I make sure that I'm centered with the tip of her nose and then clamp it down so we can get our measurements for the tails. I'm just going to mark both tails. By the way, I'm using this Jelly Roll pen. I'm excited to try it. I'm always willing to sample new products, make sure what I'm suggesting is the best. So far I wouldn't say it's writing on the skin better than what I use, but just as well. I do feel like it's maybe giving us a little bit thicker lines. So, okay, so now I'm just doing the little ball tips to the tips of her lashes to find her natural arch, and I'm just pressing down. And then also I flip this forward so that I can make sure it's centered. Sorry, I had to draw on my glove there for a second. Wasn't wanting to draw well. Okay, so I'm just going to make a mark here and follow it all the way through because you can always use your little micro tip to easily remove the line in the center of the brow. But because I'm not exactly sure where I want that top to go. Oh, this is not writing on here. Come on, you can do it. 1 second. I'm going to switch back to my normal pen. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, well, just kidding. See how that actually writes on my tool, and I utilize that a lot. Okay, so I'm checking, and I want to make sure the measurement from brow to brow is pretty even as well. So that's what I was checking there. Okay, so I'm going to clamp it down and push till I feel the brow bone, and that's where it's at. Ready? And it catches. So that's where her brow bone is. It's actually quite a bit higher than where those little tufts of hair are. So we're definitely going to be building above where those natural little tufts are at. But I'm just going to mark on both sides And if you just turn it, tilt it down to follow where that brow bone sits, there we go. Then I'm also going to mark the tails following the brow bone. So again, I just 100% map to try to work with their natural hair, but primarily following their face structure, which is mainly their brow bone. From the bottom of the video, I'm sorry, the brow, we're just working where it's already there. And I just want to build it. Let's try that thick. It seems like that's going to be a good measurement for us. Yeah, because I definitely, with how high those arches are, I don't want that slope to be too dramatic. So we're definitely going to have to build a little bit up in the centers to make that work with her natural brow bone. And I'm just kind of checking that angle. And I'm also checking that thickness. So the nice thing is, I utilize my tool for this. It gets skinnier as you work towards the end. So basically what I do is I mark. So the mark to the right is how thick the center is, but the mark to the left is just a little bit thinner. So then that way I can use that as a measuring tool for how thick I want my arches to be. You always want however thick the centers are, you want your arch, the apex of your arch, you want that area to be just a little bit thinner so that it gives the brow a little bit of a lift. So now all I have to do is connect my dots. So here's this to this, and I'm just gonna hand draw it first, but my guess is I'm going to draw a straight line, but it's going to look wonky because of this little bulby area. But let's see. I'm doing kind of shorter, and a trick too, if you have an area like this, if you draw to it on both sides, meeting in the center, you usually end up with a better line. So let's see here. Actually, I'm kind of impressed. That went pretty smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead and just connect my other measuring points. So the center to the arch. And the center to the arch. Center to the arch. Underneath. And I'm doing this kind of quickly because then I'm going to have her, then I'll sit up, and I'm assuming that I'm going to have to really spend some time perfecting this map. But who knows, maybe I'll luck out, maybe not. Okay, so from this apex, I'm just looking to how that's, again, sitting with that little bulby area, and it's actually looking surprisingly good. So I'm just connecting this to where her brow bone, so now we've just got this line connected at the top of her brow bone. Then I'm just going to build our line underneath, forming a nice V, and kind of, I don't want that tail to go too thin, but I don't want it to be too thick either. So I think that looks like a good balance for the center compared to the center of the brow. So I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. So just connect these two, and again, this is just a line that follows her brow bone on the top. I'm going to check for where her brow bone kind of starts dipping on the bottom. Make sure I'm also following that where it starts to drop off underneath. Awesome, I'm pretty happy with that, but just at a glance, I feel like this brow on the left, in the video, it looks a little thicker. So I'm going to just smooth out this line and see if that does the trick. Hey, look at that. Let me grab a micro tip. Okay, so first I'm just going to remove the center line. I'm just going to clean up underneath here. But yeah, when I set her up, I'm going to show her this and explain to her why I want to start just following where her natural hair begins because of her nose. And the other thing is, if you start being more conservative in the center, on touch-up you can always build further in. It is so much harder to, if you build too far in, then you're looking at removal or having to build further in on the other side to balance it, and that's just a mess. So you know what's so funny? After cleaning this up a little bit more, I actually think this looks pretty bomb. I'll set her up and just double check everything. Just being a perfectionist about this. Yeah, I think part of it is just that this top line too is just a little thick, so I'm even gonna clear. After I sat her up and looked at it, I realized that top line was just a little bit thick, so I'm just gonna clean that up a tiny bit more. And she totally agreed with me on the centers, by the way, so. And here's our finished map. And the other thing I did is I tried to, so where her scars are kind of at the bottom of our map. There is a little bit right here on this right one. The scar does move in the center of it, but I tried to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, and this is our map. Thanks for watching. It was super fun.